I had a friend over to the gym today. A really good workout. Mary Lou, thanks for joining me in the gym.
Did you charge her a one-time membership fee?
Well, the fee that was charged was such a difficult workout, I don't think she's going to be able to walk tomorrow. Also, I taught her the phrase, do it, lady.
Do it, lady.
Do it, lady.
Well, there are many people that probably could benefit from a little physical exercise every once in a while. Some of them are from Shoshone County.
That's true. I wonder if they could put you to the test or something, though. I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah. Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. We are the only local, politically conservative, and liberty-minded program in Kootenai County where we continue to expose the political power players, politicians, social influencers, and I don't know, sometimes like militia people who run their mouth.
C-string militia guys.
C-string militia who run their mouth. We're your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. I'm here to screen your questions and comments. Going to be doing that and contributing right into the comment section on whichever platform you're watching. You can do that all throughout the program. And we are live tonight, so what we want you to do is share this live stream broadcast to your page or profile and encourage those friends and family of yours to join us in the comment section as well. Whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, X, or Instagram, well, we just want to thank you. And if you're listening back on our podcast, be sure to catch us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. A reminder, opinions expressed are ours only, not necessarily that of any of our advertisers, sponsors, and affiliates. Tonight on the program, from skeptic to conspiracy, when distrust in government clouds the truth. That's what we're going to be talking about. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Dan Wilson.
Happy post 4th of July, better known as Independence Day. Hope you had a great holiday weekend celebrating our 249th birthday. It's a great country. I know that we had a lot of fun. You and I. It was kind of low key.
It really was.
Hung out with some of the kids for a while, and then I was in bed early. But smoked a few cigars, drank a little whiskey, barbecued. Mm-hmm. Pretty low key.
Yeah, that's a family tradition.
It is
low key.
We are so glad you joined us tonight for the Liberty Without Compromise broadcast, where we discuss and remind all of you and ourselves that here in America, we hold certain things to be sacred. Among those are life, liberty, and property. But here, the thing that binds them all together is our liberty, and we practice it without compromise. Some of you may get a little upset from time to time. You take things personally. I get it. Some of you are my friend one day, and then the next day you're not. Then we see you creeping back around. You come back into the fold. That's what we welcome here. Is we want you to come to the conclusion yourself about what the truth is based on the evidence at hand. And, we're going to be talking about this quite a bit tonight as to why so many people distrust the narrative, the official narratives. And there are many of them, and they're all over the board.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about official narratives locally, but pretty much when anything hits globally, mainstream media, and then also perhaps from our local officials, there just is that. We seem to have been programmed over recent years for distrust of what we're being told from officials.
Program trained.
Yeah.
Right. Many of us have learned our lessons, but everything is cyclical and there is nothing new under the sun. We are experiencing things that most of us that are in the baby boomer Gen X group have not experienced prior to the last couple of years. Now, some of this is social media. It has allowed more of the independent narrative to get out. Sometimes that can be outstanding, and sometimes it can be detrimental. I'm kind of on the fence. There's most of the time I would love to go back to a day and age where we did not have the internet, but at the same time, it is pretty handy for finding out what our government is doing. 150 years ago, they didn't have that same ability.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword for sure, because it gives a voice without needing an FCC license. It gives a voice to anybody. And then depending on their charisma, and sometimes it really is as small a thing as charisma, they can gain quite a huge following, and then people...
Obama.
Yeah.
Right. We can name several politicians in the past, 25 years that have, well, even JFK. I mean, look at the influence of JFK. Yep. I think our presidents started looking a lot better over the years, because you look at some of the... Because
then you had to be on on TV.
The old presidents, you're like, they probably wouldn't get elected today. So, but we are glad you are here. And, I've been remiss to show something that one of our friends to the Liberty Without Compromise broadcast made for us. We're in this studio. Our walls, you can't tell from behind us, but they're sloped. So it's tough to get perspective and get everything set up. We're continually working to get this studio a little more professional. We are, after all.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. But I want to show something that our good friends made for us here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you grab that. This was custom designed, and we've had this sitting. It really does need a place of honor. It's quite heavy. This was like really well. You can hear that. Yeah. Unlike our super thin printer paper that I accidentally bought from Dollar General one time, that thing will probably survive.
I would have given a shout out, but I was specifically asked to keep it on the down low.
Okay.
So you know who you are. Thank you very much for this gift. We're going to find a place, a prominence to place it. But, we do appreciate all of you who join Arm in Arms. We have different ideations. We don't agree on everything, but the things that we do agree are monumental. They're important. They are those things that contribute to those freedoms that we share here in the good old United States of America, as found in the Bill of Rights. So as we have these discussions on every broadcast, we try to always circle back around to remember exactly why this broadcast exists. Now, it started after my failed run for sheriff in Cooney County in 2024. And after the defeat, and it was a defeat, I admit it was a defeat, the message still burned heavily in not only my constitution, my personal constitution, I know it did in you. And we said, we got to continue to keep this message alive, because so many of you have joined us and we are spreading this. We're looking at our views going up every single week. We thank you for getting that message out. But understand that part of liberty is the right to free speech, the right to express your own opinion, to worship the way that you want to. And we remind you of historical facts, historical statements by our founders. And while the culture today has shifted to a post-Christian nation, that does not mean that we still give up our fight to do moral and righteous things, because the founder said this Constitution is wholly for moral and righteous people. Why is that? Because the idea is moral, righteous people are self-governing. And when you have self-controlled people, you don't exert your liberty at the expense of somebody else's liberty. And of course, there's that whole morality portion as well. But you don't have to agree with me lock, stock, and barrel. I don't agree with many of you lock, stock, and barrel, but we do agree on the fundamentals, and that's why you are hopefully here tonight. If you are brand new to the show, thank you. Follow me on X at the Idaho Sheriff. You can also follow me on Instagram and YouTube. We're everywhere.
No, yeah, definitely follow Dan over on X. That conversation is, I think, a lot of times more hard hitting, and you can really get a lot of more insight into the things that are important to him. He thinks about it even more on from a national scope, and he's on X at the idahosheriff.com. Look for him under DW Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a bunch of you joined since the top of the hour, so I want to remind you to share this live stream to your page or profile so that more of you can join in on the conversation. And then you can do that anytime along the way, in right there in the comments section. And if it's a question that fits the topic at hand, we'll have Dan address that. And I was thinking of what you were saying, government needing or really depending on a righteous and moral people. And if that was where we still were in society, largely a righteous and moral people, I think government wouldn't have gotten as big as it has, and we wouldn't be legislating so many things to try to keep people in order over everything.
Well, I mean, look, morality is what everything else stems from, right? It is how you live your life. It's your worldview. Madison said, James Madison, the architect of the Constitution, if men were angels, government would not be necessary. But men are not angels, and therefore we have to agree on certain immovable objects when it comes to our morality. You know, things like it's not right to murder, it's not right to steal. Those basic things, the laws of nature and of nature's God, as John Locke opined about in his piece, Treaty of Two Governments. And then, of course, our founders cited John Locke, that English philosopher. I said one time, actually called John Locke, like John Locke, very English name. For whatever reason, I refer to him as the Frenchie.
Oh,
I was thinking Montesquieu.
That's embarrassing.
Anyway, yeah, so we do talk about these things a lot. Now, part of this platform, and many of you like this, there's a lot of you that don't. We give equal opportunity to many different voices. Now, we do have limits. It is our show, but when it comes to the free speech aspect, we tend to allow people, even if we don't endorse 100% of what they say, we allow people to come on this show in various forms to get their message out. I am really excited to tell you about a guest that we have coming on next week. So I want you to open up your ears, pay close attention.
Absolutely, 100%.
Because it's very important that you know in advance to get your questions into us via the following email, info@theidahosheriff.com, info@theidahosheriff.com. In the subject line, you're going to say questions, and we will get as many of those questions asked of the person that's coming on our show. So who's coming on our show?
Well, it's going to be Mr. Dan Gookin. You've already been accused of, like, he put you up to something, or he's really what's behind you and whatever you did. Right? You guys are in cahoots.
Yeah.
You've already been accused of that. Now you're going to have him on your show.
We are going to bring him on, and that's next week, next Wednesday night on our Liberty Without Compromise broadcast, episode 28, because this is 27. Yeah, Dan Gookin will be on here for, 15, 20 minutes to lay out what his campaign is all about, and we are going to allow you to ask questions. Now, they have to be respectful. So if you're name calling or anything like that, we're not going to ask that question. Having just got off the campaign trail, I understand how some of those go. You can ask him hard questions, but we want to give him a chance. I hear this all the time. I hear all sorts of things about Dan and what he says and what he supposedly stands for. You know, it's easy to take video clips and piece them together. We piece things together. I get it. But it is your chance to ask him the hard questions. I guarantee there's things that I don't agree with Mr. Gookin, but this gives you guys a chance to hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak, exactly what his philosophies are and what he believes in. So,
and this might be the first place that this type of forum happens anymore in Kootenai County.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there are scripted questions that will go out to candidates, but really no longer any kind of a live forum, true, legitimate debate.
Yeah, because in our instance, 90 days, public request for Sheriff Robert Bob Norris to debate me in a public forum per the FEC's guidelines. We sent it out to all legacy media, all alternate media. Bob Norris, the coward, refused to debate me. And all of you sycophants that continually wanted to sing his praises, how competent, how professional he was you guys are all a bunch of idiots for not demanding that your guy who supposedly was going to smoke me show it by an actual real debate. Not this show your proof, gotcha campaign, which we've already broken down and shown that was a gimmick, but a real debate.
Where he was selling his campaign
T-shirts, yeah.
paraphernalia. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, get your questions in. I think we'll do a cutoff.
And again, questions in for Dan Gukin, he's running for
Coeur d'Alene Mayor.
Coeur d'Alene Mayor. He will be live on the program next week. So you can submit those questions to info@theidahosheriff.com. You can send inbox messages too, and I can collate those for you guys. And then you'll be able to ask live in the comment section when we have them on the program next week. I briefly want to thank our sponsor, Midday Squares. That is a functional chocolate square that satisfies your sweet cravings. It's everything a chocolate bar isn't and everything a functional bar wishes it was. So delicious, real ingredients without all the bad stuff, and they just taste delicious. So it'll curb those morning, afternoon, evening cravings and help keep you on track. I put the discount code for 15% off there in the comment section. You'll get 15% off your entire order. When you click on that, you can order those online. Midday Squares.
Awesome. I like it. We need to get some more.
I know.
Damon says, Woody is a formidable opponent. Goons, be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't know if Goons is short for Gookin or we're Goons, not certain. Damon's always a good dude, so I'm not taking it as an offense. But yeah, we'll absolutely allow Woody to come on as well. Yeah, we're not playing any sides here. We want to play fair all the way down the line. Are
there any updates on the lawsuits against Norris? That's another question there.
I have not heard anything. In fact, it's been strangely quiet.
Yeah, that we were talking
nothing
about
from Raul Labrador, the Attorney General, in his supposed investigation into Bob Norris. I guess either he's stalling that investigation or it is a messed up event that takes a while to dig through it. So who knows?
Yeah. Keep those questions coming in as we proceed through the program right there in the comment section.
Damon, what? Got it. All right. I get you, brother. Government, liars, gaslighting. There's nothing worse as a patriot where, remember, Americans, we have no kings. Every one of us is equal in value. We have no nobility. We don't have clergy that rules us and tells us what to do. And we sure as hell don't have a king. So therefore, as an American, I think I speak for many of you, I take exception, great exception, to any elected official and or bureaucrats, those that work for the officials, that would gaslight us. Now, we have seen a lot of gaslighting the past few days, and we don't talk as much on the national scale. I keep wanting to get back into the Palantir and the spying on the Americans and Foundry and Gotham, and we are working on that. But this past week, we have a video we're going to play. Big news, the Epstein deflation. And, well, you guys can watch this video. See if you're as pissed off as I am.
Released yesterday with Jeffrey Epstein. It left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the
Yeah, sure. If
Hey, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
I think that is, in my opinion, one of the largest gaslight jobs that I have ever observed out of POTUS. We've seen some doozies over the years. We know when they fudge. We know when Ronald Reagan, even when he was running, was asked questions a couple times and kept giving the answer he wanted to talk about, not the answer to the question that he was asked. But one of the things that I notice in this is how much Trump was acting like we're crazy. You're still talking about that? I mean, this is the same guy who ran on, we're going to release the lists. And Pam Bondi, we're going to release all the documents. They're on top of my desk. And then the FBI in Southern District of New York was not going to release them. And, on and on and on it goes. This one, out of many things, has made me extremely angry. And we're friends. Those of you that are still in love with Trump, listen to me when I tell you this. If you make a statement to me, trust the plan, that he's doing this now because he's making a deal on the side, shame on you. We've been hearing this for years. Trust the plan. He's playing 4D chess. No, I don't know what he's doing, but we don't pay our politicians. We don't elect our politicians to keep us in the dark. This is supposed to be a government where it is transparent. Look at Patel and Bongino. What in the world is going on? Bongino, like me, calls people out all the time, and then he gets into the FBI and turns. I mean, look at how disappointing these people are. Look, Cash, I really liked Bongino. I had a certain amount of trust in Trump, but this right here is going to cost them a ton of political capital. And we don't care what other kind of deals are being made. I say blow the whole damn thing up. You have to get to the bottom of this and expose every last son of a gun that has been participating with Epstein and the island. I don't care if it takes the economy down. But it's not just that either.
So Mike Marquardt says, it's amazing to me how you all think he must be open about everything. This is a good thing to talk about. Whether or not you're dispersing shame onto Dan, I get your point. Does he need to be open about everything? Part of it for me was the way he addressed it in the tone of why I cannot believe you're still.
Mike,
are you still talking about this?
Mike, seriously. He could have just said, you know what? It's an open shut case, whatever. But look at the way he responded. You're still going to defend him after he responded like the guy was crazy? How dare any of us still ask questions about it? Because there's so many more important things, like people that have drowned, had their entire homes destroyed, their communities wiped out. Really, Mike? Yeah, I disagree with you, Mike.
Damon says he has Texas on his mind, which he could very well have at that moment. So the timing was wrong. That may have.
No, I don't care. Trump is a guy that is always supposed to be calm under pressure. We see this. He plays this game all the time. Don't tell me that all of a sudden he decides this day, because the pressure's too great from what's going on in Texas and in the Middle East, that he blows off what is probably, next to COVID, the largest scandal in American history. Mike, let me ask you, if Trump were to say, are we still talking about those damn vaccines? You guys are crazy. There's nothing wrong with it. Would you still have the same attitude, Mike? Now, I still love you, just so we're clear. But yeah, I reject your comment.
But this definitely is a result of when you have to support the guy you support, no matter what it is they do or say, but it's more about your undying and loyal to the end support I think that opens you up for trouble, because if we did that in our interpersonal relationships, that would mean trouble. So I don't know why we think we can do that with politicians. They are not inerrant. Why do we think that we need to do that in this?
It was
loyal
his
to the
entire
death
tone.
situation?
It was his entire tone that there of all the things that he has done over the years that people get, upset about, his bloviating, his grandstanding, whatever. This was a response in 5 years that completely pissed me off, because how condescending he was towards, not that reporter, he was condescending, Mike, to every last one of us Americans that demand to know who was involved and why they were involved. So let's go to the next video.
Okay.
Because on the heels of this, we're just talking about Texas. And let's go ahead and take a look at what we're finding out about some of the Texas issues.
Welcome back. Congress is looking to take action, at least some in Congress, after the tragic flooding in Texas. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is targeting weather modification. She announced on X, introducing a bill that prohibits the injection, release, or dispersion of chemicals into the atmosphere for the express purpose of altering the weather, adding, it will be a felony offense. We must end the dangerous and deadly practice of weather modification. Now, one of the techniques under the umbrella of weather modification is cloud seeding. It's an experiment that dates back to 1946, and it's now especially widespread in Texas, covering about 1/6 of the state, spanning 31 million acres. So, what is cloud seeding? It's a technique designed to help a cloud produce more rain, and here's how it works. A chemical compound, most oftenly silver iodide, is used to form small crystals that are put into clouds. It's usually by a drone. That process then helps trigger rain. It can also reduce hail and clear fog. It's produced, by the way, modest results so far, increasing rainfall anywhere from 5 to 20%. Now, here's how it's used. States use cloud seeding to produce rain in areas that are experiencing drought. It can also help generate snow in mountain regions. One of the instances of how it's been used in history, by the way, is Operation Popeye in the Vietnam War. Our Army used it to prolong the monsoon season, hoping to bog down the Viet Cong's logistics line, making it harder for them to reinforce the front line. Now, my next guest is an expert in this field. He's also been the center of a lot of controversy since the flooding in Texas. And here's what he has said in the past about cloud seeding.
If you have the right kind of radar and you fly in a zigzag, right, or in a circle, or in your initials, and you only see precipitation on the radar in your flight track, then you can say, oh, that is definitively man-made because we flew in this zigzag or we flew in this spiral, and there's only precipitation occurring in that shape. They did that in Idaho in 2017 multiple times.
Now, I want you to take a look at this. The red line at the bottom of your screen, that's the flight path of his company, Rainmaker, and their cloud seeding operations on July 2nd, just days before the deadly Texas floods. Now some are questioning whether or not that flight played a role in.
Okay. So now you have this going mainstream on, I think that was Fox, where it starts out saying that Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene has introduced legislation to ban it. You have this kid talking about the fact that he's part of a company or owns a company that they do seed the weather. And we know, we've talked to people in Idaho, it's happening. Idaho Power allows that. Epstein, I'm going to go back to this a second. There's been speculation that this is nothing more than a cover-up for the elite and powerful here in the United States, the CIA, and that it's somehow tied into Israel and Mossad. And when you start telling people, get over it, there's nothing to see here, you guys are all a bunch of idiots, you leave people to start speculating and coming up with their own answers. The same thing in Texas. There are a lot of you that believe that the flooding that occurred down there in Texas and in other places is a direct result from weather manipulation. And it very well could be. To say that it doesn't or isn't is foolish. I mean, I've seen myself out here in North Idaho, the grid patterns, but I don't know concrete how everything works. And so when you have a government that is not transparent, what happens again? People have to start coming up with their own conclusion as to what's going on. And it even comes back down to, I didn't play a video of it, but Trump and his comments on Ukraine. I'm going to stop the war, and then I'm going to negotiate a peace deal. We're not going to give money over there. And now we're depleting our weapons at a greater rate than what we had assumed originally. But, oh, by the way, we have to still send arms over to Ukraine. And people have to speculate again. Well, why is he doing that? Why is Trump doing an about face? Or it appears that he's doing an about face.
Just trust the plan.
Trust the plan.
Process. Welcome to those of you joining us since the top of the hour. Our topic tonight, from skeptic to conspiracy, when distrust in government clouds the truth. And you can join in on this conversation in the comment section on whichever platform you're watching. I want to let you know, over on Instagram, we have a question, and I've seen it. I am going to get that over to Dan here in a little bit. So
is it
thank you for
pertaining
joining
to
us.
this topic?
It's not. So
Okay.
we'll get to that here in a little bit.
Mike, I personally think Epstein is alive. You're exactly describing what I believe happens again when you have a government that continually lies. So why wouldn't you think the guy's alive?
Yeah.
Why is it so crazy to think that he is alive? Is it any more crazy than to say, well, Ghislaine Maxwell was indicted and charged and eventually sentenced to how long in prison because of her role in the trafficking of girls? And what was it? Was it one of the large banks? I won't say the name because I can't remember. That also was forced to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, give me a break. Now, locally, we're not immune here. We talked about this last week. Bad communication leads to speculation.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I keep hearing the comments. I do not blame you here locally for questioning the narrative. I'm going to officially say this so that there is no misunderstanding. As of the current time and place right here, which is July the 9th, 2025, I do not personally at this moment see enough evidence to imply that some of the most outrageous ideas that are coming largely from a guy, we've got it on slide 1, I think it's page 2, George Webb, and some of the things that he has been saying. We'll go to that slide here. He's got a YouTube page, and I think that one of the I don't know, I guess I'll get my slide here for me because I'm blind. I can't say I got to pull my own personal one up. Some of the titles of his stories or his podcast, I guess. When an FBI program goes horribly wrong, the Idaho Firemen Massacre. And then we've got child killer murders 2 innocent firefighters in Idaho. Pretty bold statements.
Yeah, I want, one of the things, Dan and I had gotten in some heated discussions about this with the Canfield Mountain incident here locally. When people were questioning the narrative they were being fed, my point simply was, can we really blame them for questioning?
No,
we talked about that at the top of the hour when it's been drilled into us and we've figured out by now that we've been lied to so much from the top down.
Yeah.
And then you got locally figureheads who really are not doing a good job of explaining what's going on.
I'm going to address this.
You're getting
and I'm going to come back.
I want to say more about the George Webb thing too, but I'll let you go.
First page of the slide.
Okay.
I have not observed the Coeur d'Alene Press's ability to do any kind of real reporting. Sorry to the Coeur d'Alene Press. You guys underwhelm me. We've talked about timelines. You had a sheriff that held a couple press events. We talked about this last week. We know how many of you were left less than satisfied with what you found out? Narratives are all over the place. There wasn't solid answers. There has not been any follow-up to this. And yet we have the Spokesman review 1 week to the day of the murders. Because let's not forget, let's not call it anything less than what it is. It was a murders. Doesn't fit the definition of mass killer. Maybe. I guess 3 is the number today by the FBI standards. But the most concise timeline and facts to this event, which should have come from the sheriff, even if not that next day, but shortly thereafter, you can find it in the Spokesman review if you search for it. A couple interesting things that I found in that article is that Spokane County Sheriff John Knowles heard the call, got in his uniform, and he was right in Kootenai County at the command post, eyes on, observing, helping wherever he could. There is no mention of Bob Norris, the current sheriff, the one that was trained. He was handpicked according to his bio on his website, not only at his reelect Sheriff Norris, but also the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, where he brags that he was hand-selected after 9/11 as an elite individual to go and learn to handle all sorts of mass events, man-made and natural. And we're just not seeing that. We don't see that high caliber of the individual that claims he has all this experience and was handpicked. He's a liar. I'm going to say it right now. I don't care what any of you have to say, whether you agree with me or not. The proof's in the pudding by the way he performed. He is a liar, an exaggerator on his resume, and shame on all of you who have never demanded to see it, nor taken the time to read the peer reviews as to how many of his peers thought he was a slug. But we have this problem right now. Yeah, so go back to Webb. This is I understand why now Webb is gaining traction.
Yeah.
Webb is boots on the ground. But I want to, as we're weaving through this, I want to talk about some of the reasons that I don't trust this guy and some of his facts that he has wrong.
Yeah. I mean, my contribution to that topic, because you've already researched it a lot more than I have in terms of where he's come from, what the guy is doing. But when you have somebody who it is their full-time, and you got the background on him, it is his full-time job to take whatever comes out nationally and hits mainstream media. It is his full-time job to come out with some type of contrarian viewpoint, or as we're calling it, maybe calling it conspiracy theories. So you have to be really careful with a guy like that, because it is his full-time. He has made it a career. He has to produce content daily. I mean, he hangs his hat on the fact that there are tragedies and things like this that unfold. And once it hits national level and he's got enough eyeballs on it, he's going to come up with a dissenting perspective. And that's where I'm just asking my friends, and, especially in this community, because I've seen this nucleus of people that's just been quick and sharing this video faster than the wildfire spreading on Canfield Mountain, going to this guy looking for answers. And I get that it's because, in large part, distrust of Bob Norris and the way that was presented in those press conferences. And again, nationally, or like Terry said here a little bit earlier, we're coming to find out, we've been lied about most things our entire lives.
Well, and part of my campaign was pointing out the lies of the Bob Norris administration. Yes. And I can't wait. Next week, we're going to dive into his new budget requests and the things that he's asking for. That it's funny that a year after his election, after that campaign, he's kind of going back and showing what his real true colors always were and how much more he's asking out of you. We're also going to talk about the new Hayden contract that is 2 to 3 times the amount of what Bob Norris originally negotiated before he went, sorry, I was wrong. No. It's going to cost you 3 times now that I got you under contract.
Bait and switch. Just final words, George Webb. That is how he makes his living, that he has to get visibility. He cannot go 1 or 2 days without publishing something new. He has to do it.
For clicks.
He has
claims
to.
he has 12 million viewers.
He's 22 million or something like that in very short order. So this is a guy that arrives on the scene like this independent, and he saw the need for it, and he can be playing on the fact that in large part a bunch of us are waking up realizing we've been lied to all our lives, and then he is now that counter argument. So I'm just saying, be careful. Still don't let that interrupt your common sense and question even some of the things his narrative.
So a couple of the things, and not everything that he says is that off base, but the problem is if you go out there and you definitively say something, we try not to do that here unless we truly have the proof, it gets you in trouble. One of the things that he's been camping on is I'm the only one asking for all these records. I've requested the body cam footage from the deputies. I've asked for the body cam on the fire and on the police cars, and I don't see anybody else requesting this stuff. Well, number one, Mr. Webb, you wouldn't know because you would have to request through a FOIA anybody who is collecting this information along with you. They're not just going to tell you every agency, every individual that is requesting this stuff. So, I mean, quit bloviating about you're the only person looking into it. Number two, you said, how come Chuck Mistler, this is how dumb. Anybody that has lived in Cooney County long enough knows that Chuck Mistler, who was a pastor that founded Koinonia House, I think it was tied in possibly to Candlelight Church. I don't know. He had this big following. He was a preacher online for a long time. But Webb, I'm listening to it just the other morning. He keeps saying, well, where is Mistler? How come Mistler isn't looking into it? Well, hey, Webb, Mistler has been deceased since 2018. I mean, but back to the records request. There is no sheriff or chief of police by statute in Idaho that is going to release any kind of evidence, and that's what body camera footage is. It is evidence during an active investigation. Everybody knows I don't approve of Bob Norris. I think the guy's inept. But I'm defending the process, which I too would most likely have done, because while the narrative needs to be cleaned up by a sheriff that is transparent and can speak to all the questions you have with certainty without any kind of projecting or deflecting. Well, one of the things that you may not be privy, and I may not be privy to, is that there are things that they are still investigating, things that they don't want out in the public, things that could jeopardize their investigation. What if there were more than one shooter? But they're keeping that under wraps because of their investigation. That doesn't mean that they are attempting to mislead the people per se, but it's part of the investigation. So, when he grandstands on that, it's not like my FOIA request that I was putting in last year where they were continually obstructing mine and they were not active investigations. So I've dealt firsthand with Cooney County Sheriff's Office when it comes to not records people.
There's some water over there if you want to. Yeah, we're right over there if you want. This here is not water, so you'll not be tapping into that and upsetting people with your bad habits.
Right. So anyway, look, my friends, if you are buying into George Webb right now, I get it. I don't blame you one bit.
Yeah, that needs to be said.
But there are certain things that if you find it troubling, ask somebody here locally. Remember, this community is large. Most of you have to know at least a firefighter, a police officer, even if they didn't serve here, that can answer some of your questions and run it past them and they'll go, that's standard protocol. No, that's not odd. So, but again, I get it. When government continually lies to us, then the people, we, all of us, myself included, are forced to come up with our own narrative and or conclusions based on the evidence we have. So my challenge to you is to keep an open mind. Don't just run off to a three-ring circus because it's entertaining and it sounds good and it tickles your funny bone or your conspiracy bone. And I've got a big conspiracy bone.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not preaching to you. I'm preaching to myself. But for the love of God, don't bite off everything that he says. And number two, there's a lot of videos. I can't even go through them all anymore.
Yeah, again, distrust in government tends to cloud the truth. So just keep an open mind when it comes to that. On that, I'm going to transition to this question from a viewer over on Instagram. Sutton happens to share the last name Wilson. So this is a big question, might be loaded. Why do you think you lost the election? And what are you going to do next time to do, he says, better? He voted for you and disappointed that you didn't get elected.
Well, I appreciate that. I've talked about this repeatedly. I lost because I didn't have the KCRCC mafia behind me. And the KCRCC, which is the Cooney County Republican Central Committee, they are a mafia. Why are they a mafia? Because they are the official party platform here in Cooney County and their Central Committee. While it's made up of 70 plus members, they choose who they want to be their candidate. They go through their little vetting committee, which they should not be doing. They have people that are biased on that committee. I experienced that.
Mike Marquardt has another conspiracy. He says, I think Dan won.
I agree on that.
Yes.
No, Mike, I love you. But here's the thing. When I early on, right 2 months after I had officially announced, right before the Republican primary, when I found out that Terry Seymour, who was actively campaigning against me and for Bob Norris and friends with him, sat on that committee. When I saw Nina Beasley, that was continually coming to every one of my events and attempting to smear and to malign and just the way that she was throughout that, and others, I knew the writing on the wall. I knew I was not going to have a fair shake, and I was not going to, at that point, I would not allow myself to be shanghaied by that process. And so therefore I went independent. So that is why I didn't win. Now the Republicans, the Central Committee under Brent Reagan's leadership, he will make the claim that he doesn't really make decisions, but he does influence. And I'm going to talk about this in just a second, but they spend all their money to put out that fancy flyer who to vote for. And in a county that is over 70% Republican, if you're on that cheat sheet and it goes out in your mail, you're not going to catch up. I mean, it would take close to $75,000 to $100,000 to be able to compete with just that mailer. So
yeah, we had a comment actually earlier in the program when I didn't vote for Mr. Gookin the last time around because when I received the KCRCC ballot in the mail, and they call it a ballot in the mail, who they endorsed. Yeah.
So I had a conversation with somebody that's part of the KCRCC. And they said, Brent is very generous in like this Dr. Teresa Bornpole lawsuit that's coming shortly. It's a tort claim right now. Many people have been named in it, part of the KCRCC from the town hall event back in February 22nd. You can go back to our live coverage of that and subsequent episodes to learn more. Sheriff Norris, of course, is being accused of violating, I think, civil rights. But this person in the KCRCC that's currently part of the executive team said to me, Brent is very generous and he's helping legally cover their costs. And he helps fund a lot of the things with the KCRCC. And I asked him, I said, if Brent was no longer the chairman, would he continue to be that generous? And the response was no. Let that sink in. Now, this was told to me. It's not the gospel, but I think it's pretty close to what most of us already know about what's going on with the KCRCC. And all you have to do is look across the entire state to see the upheaval that is going on between the extremist right, which are just as bad as the extremist left, and the shattering of the entire state Republican Party. Everybody's calling each other rhinos. You guys have lost sight of what being a Republican really is. The founders never wanted lock, stock, and barrel, fall in place, all agreement. They wanted there to be a lot of turmoil and upheaval because they didn't want legislation to pass quickly like it was doing under the Articles of Confederation. That was one of the problems. A legislature that can come out and quickly change laws to the benefit of them. All you have to look is Greg Graff, who, there's a lot of stuff that Greg Graff says that I don't agree with, but he's had problems with some of the same people that I'm not even going to mention their names that are shills. They're being paid probably under the counter, but they fit the definition of state statute for lobbyists. So I think it's fascinating to sit back and watch this purity test where you have some extreme fringe people on the right that they're so diehard in their beliefs that they're forgetting that the founders protected others from extremist beliefs.
Yeah, and what the KCRCC has become, they didn't just say, look, Sheriff Norris, who's been our recommended candidate in the past, who is the incumbent sheriff, he's coming up against a formidable opponent. Isn't that nice? Just let this guy do his thing. Mm-hmm. They actually, they sent people and went out of their way, out of the gates, to actually eviscerate you.
We haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Lawfully, though, we covertly recorded my final vetting committee survey, I guess, in person interview.
The interview, yeah.
And you can hear Nina Beasley, mm-hmm. who was shrill in her voice and calling me a liar, or I better be careful. But it was alluding that I was dishonest.
Do facts and evidence. So her question when it came around, and this was the big question, for this vetting committee to, I guess, determine whether or not you're fit for office. And her question was, do facts and evidence matter to you?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, clearly this is headed somewhere. This is a no-win.
So one of these days we're going to play that because you can see how unhinged it is. And look, I've said this. It was fortunate for me. Had they allowed me to go through the process and been fair about it, and I had lost in the primary, I'd have said adios and, gone on and done something else. But it was the KCRCC, those losers in the KCRCC, and I do have good friends. They're still part. So I'm not talking about my good friends there. I'm talking about the losers. You guys made us. And I've been the biggest pain in your ass for over a year and a half, and I'm not stopping. I'm going to continue to put the fire on because what you're doing is immorally wrong.
Well, and it's been very interesting to see the highest up elected officials in our county who are watching what you're doing.
We do.
I want to say to Seton Wilson over on Instagram, any more on that topic when you want to harken back to the election, and Dan has spoken so much on that with KCRCC, the vetting process, how the wrap up of the election, we've done rapid fire episodes. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the Idaho Sheriff, because every single one of those live streams are archived, and you can run a search, type in any keywords that are going to bring you to episodes where we're discussing those topics. And I think you'll get even more as in-depth of an answer as you want on that topic.
Yeah. But, for somebody that was continually told, allergies tonight, man.
It's bad this season, yeah.
That was told, you're inexperienced. You've just run a construction company for 26 years. Although they love businessman Trump, mm-hmm. who had never held public office, because of their ignorance, falsely believing that a sheriff is part of a rank instead of an elected position. They didn't even know what they didn't know. We found out early on when deputies came to me from Bob Norris's own team, who I'm still in contact with on a regular basis. And they said, take a look at this helicopter issue. And we did. And I'm not going to go through this whole backstory on it. You guys can look up videos and on our YouTube page and find it. But here's what I think is funny. The volunteer helicopter that was sold that the county had to use, and why we had to quit using Spokane County's unreliable, even though they have 2 helicopters and fixed wing.
And no data, nothing to prove that it had ever been unavailable or unreliable.
During this last event, we in Kootenai County used air assets from Spokane County, Homeland Security, I believe, think they were sending a Black Hawk.
And that's the
Guess what?
Canfield
Yeah.
Mountain event.
Guess what wasn't flying? That hasn't flown a mission since September 12th of last year, even though the county already paid $10,000 as a memo of understanding and put over $100,000 of civil asset forfeiture money onto a helicopter with equipment that's owned by the county on a helicopter they don't own that hasn't flown.
And got really nice flight suits. I have to bring it up every time because those are cool flight
so
suits.
Dumb, inexperienced, reserve, as Tad says, one step above a mall cop.
You know he's been waiting this whole episode.
Hey, Tad or Trevor or whatever your name is. There you go.
Oh.
But what I was able to do is point out, like only a businessman can, the problems with insurance and liability to the county. And even though Chairman Duncan at the time and Eberline, both county commissioners, never responded to two of my letters sent formally requesting their responses, the helicopter's been grounded. So I found it humorous when somebody sent to me these screenshots. Well, I sent them to you. We're going to go to slide page number 3. This is on the FOP, those rascals. Those are the personal friends of Bob Norris, his little union.
The inner circle.
This is off their Facebook page?
Yeah.
So
what do you call it? The
FOP?
Fraternal Kootenai County Fraternal Order of Police Lodge.
Yeah, I think that's an offshoot of the Masons. Okay, Kootenai County Fraternal Order of Police puts this caption out with their helicopter. If only Kootenai County had air support, the question we should be asking is, why is it grounded? Who grounded it, and who got it grounded? Why? You may have to read these while I go and cough again.
Oh, well, I can't see him, so that doesn't help me much.
So you guys
read
can
some of
go
those
there.
comments.
Brett Surplus, failed county commissioner candidate, 100%, and it was Washington jackass that rhymes with dingleberry.
Oh, so the question
Wilson
is
doesn't rhyme with dingleberry.
No.
Surplus.
So the question was, who grounded that helicopter? And they're alluding to you might have had something to do with that.
So we know that there was quite a bit of discussion, and look, it's getting late. We don't have to go through them all.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious that somebody that was not qualified to, run the sheriff's office was able to successfully ground this helicopter. We're never going to get the full story again because we don't have transparent government. Some of the other things too. This Hayden contract with Kootenai County Sheriff's Office last year during the campaign, I had a sitting Hayden council member that came to me and requested input. And because of my contacts, again, stupid reserve apparently doesn't know how to do this, but I brought in my experts who were well vested and versed rather in negotiating contracts for law enforcement in municipalities. And we found a lot of problems in this contract, a lot of questions, a lot of what I believe was fudging numbers and fudging language of what they were and were not providing to the city of Hayden. It was extremely prejudicial, one-sided. We know what they did to Spirit Lake PD. When Bob Norris was pissed off that he couldn't take over Spirit Lake because Spirit Lake, the city, was having problems with their old law enforcement staff. He thought he was going to come in and expand his universe like he most likely wants to do, I'm guessing, in Hayden. But, these are the things that businessmen know how to look at, and we look at these things in the language, and we know when a bad deal is occurring because we read contracts for a living.
And I don't think that necessarily happens from somebody who's worked up the ranks and been career government employee, career law enforcement, and quote, it's a rank as we're misled to believe, which it is not. That's where that lifetime business experience, like you said, spending all day reading contracts, dissecting that
but
stuff.
I think it ties back into this Canfield fire because really we should not have a piece of equipment that we're selling to the community, we're taking to the parades and to the kiddo events, pretending like we have this great air service that doesn't even have hoist capability. They have no rescue capability in this, folks. It's an old helicopter. And it's for a couple of these local businessmen and some retirees and cowboy deputies to play around on. And I think we proved in this one event that we need to go back to Spokane County.
Seems like a notch in the belt.
Yeah, absolutely use an asset for public safety.
Damon said, I heard a story too about Norris raffling off a ride in the helicopter for political purposes. Might want to check into it.
Well, we did hear
have.
that.
Yeah.
I was never able during the campaign to find any concrete evidence, but we did find that Norris was only for Republicans because Evan Koch, the Democrat Central Committee chairman,
that's right,
wrote a letter to Bob Norris, and he said, hey, you're raffling off, and by the way, in violation of state law, assets from the sheriff's office for these raffles for Republican events. You know, why aren't you going to do it for the Democrats? And the emails going back and forth. Bob's an ass to Evan. It's clear that Bob is a partisan hack, and he's using the sheriff's office to continue to promote his friends at the KCRCC and Lurch and Gomez. But it's pretty
Lurch on the Segway.
Yeah,
that's the hint you're getting. Terry said that she was at an event where the ride in the helicopter was offered. Again, that's not me giving proof. That's just the chatter.
But it's interesting how many unlawful things Bob Norris and the KCRCC can do and get away with it, because there is no accountability in the state. Now, I came from Washington State, 4th generation, just 20 miles to the west, not California, not Seattle. And, I was sick to death of all the regulations in Washington. I still am in business operating in Washington. My headquarters, just to be clear, are still here in Cooney County, but we do a lot of work in Washington State still. And look, there's a happy balance. I have found the most astonishing thing in the past 2 years at how little accountability there is all the way across. And one of the greatest things about Idaho is there's not a lot of regulation. And one of the worst things is there's not a lot of regulation. I don't know how Stan Mortensen has not put his thumb down on Bob Norris on many occasions and said, cool your jets, knock it off. Penny Ann Collinson, in that case, is one of them. So, we're probably never going to fully know the answer to most of this stuff. But, kind of joining in. Because free people that believe in life, liberty, and property, and the fundamentals of constitutional law, because every law that we have in our country is supposed to be based on the Constitution. The states are supposed to be able to govern their own state, different than any other state, by the consent of the people under the confines of the Constitution. One of the things that we hear quite a bit is how important it is for people to be part of the church. Evangelical, Mormon, Catholic, whatever. And we get a lot of bloviating by how great these churches are. You and I have said this. We did a search. There's 100 or so, give or take, evangelical churches in Cooney County. Over 90,000 attendance on any Sunday. We're in a county of 180,000. A lot of people are here. I may have some of my facts off, but pretty close. And yet this county is not fundamentally changed. And I've personally witnessed churches that are not transparent, that make things up, that lie, that manipulate people. I think we should not just focus on government, but the reflection of the government that we have today, the reflection of our current society, our culture, is a reflection of the state of the current church. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah. And I don't know if you wanted to cover that IRS. So this just came out, and we're going to do this briefly because I know we've kind of exceeded our hour here already.
Wait.
That doesn't
We
stop
can do it as
us.
long as we want to.
I still like that pastor clip you have too. I don't know if that fits in, wedge that in right here, or if that fits at all.
Well, if you want to play it right now while you're waiting to get your stuff up.
Well, I'm just going to play it.
Extremely disappointed in our own community when the 2 firemen lost their lives, and the one that's now fighting for his life still to this moment in the hospital, last I heard recorded, that there was no spiritual leadership in this community. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not spiritual leaders. I was ready. I was prepared. I made texts to the right persons telling them I was available. I went to the hospital, told the hospital staff and the chaplains there that the pastors were available. Zip. Crickets. Look, this is a time when our community needed spiritual leadership. And they need people to be comforted by the power of God and to be directed to God and given instruction concerning the kinds of pain that we're going through today. People blame God, as I mentioned when I was praying. Today in Texas, Governor Abbott at least said we need to pray, we need prayer. He didn't say to whom. He made it worse when he said we believe in the power of prayer. I want to just mention this again. My friends, please, there is no innate power in prayer. It is the one to whom you are praying that has the power. If you pray to your car, your chair, your statue.
Okay, we get the idea.
You get the point. You get the point.
That is Paul Van Noy, senior pastor of Candlelight Christian Fellowship on 95, probably one of the largest, if not the largest, evangelical church in Coeur d'Alene.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, Paul Van Noy, pastor. That's kind of curious. I mean, after all, you made it sound like you sent out your request or your offer to be of assistance to some important people. Was one of those Bob Norris, because you're on the record of saying that Bob's your friend, despite his problems, you're still his friend. You've supported him publicly. You know, you've asked him to go down and check out illegals in Walmart. You've called him up.
Well, he said Van Noy has said Bob has done everything I've asked him to do. So maybe now,
good point.
Maybe now that's changed.
So I don't know, maybe it's past the campaign and the election's over. So Pastor Paul, there's a couple conclusions here one might make, if I may, because I got the mic now. Number one, maybe your friends don't consider you that useful or that important in a major incident. Number two, maybe the people are kind of getting sick and tired of the bloviating and the grandstanding and not much fruit happening. Ask the people that are leaving that church what they have to say about what's going on with leadership. Maybe the community's onto these false churches. Now, am I calling Candlelight false church? No, not really, but I think there's issues there.
Not really. You're leaving the door open. Damon was chiming in. I think this is important. He says he knows the pastor, who I'm assuming is the chaplain of Kootenai Fire and Rescue. He knows him very well, and that's a completely false what he said in terms of a pastor not being available, or that what this community needed more than ever was that spiritual guidance and leadership.
Was that kind of like when Paul Van Noy from the pulpit claimed that I had threatened him?
Yeah.
Despite I've never talked to him in my life. Yeah, so.
Threatened.
I know, just something to think about.
We have most likely all heard in a court filing the IRS said a decades-old ban on campaigning by tax-exempt groups should not apply to houses of worship speaking to their own members. And so that was a story that came out in the last couple of days. There used to be this law that churches had to abide by, that you could not recommend candidates from the pulpit. So you could have political discussions, but you couldn't openly get political by recommending a candidate. And it looks like that is now changing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been following an account called The Religion Business. It's an account on Instagram that you and I have both been following. They have been working on a 7-part docuseries about religion being a business. It's been fascinating. So we've been waiting for them to unleash this to the public, and it debuts tomorrow. Now, The Religion Business exposes a growing problem in the nonprofit and religious sector, a lack of transparency and oversight. Through investigative reporting and real-world cases, it reveals how well-meaning intentions can mask financial management, ethical lapses, and broken trust with donors and communities. So The Religion Business is releasing a documentary. It's one that Dan and I will definitely both be investing in to watch that 7-part series. I'm going to let you guys watch this video. It explains how this ties into the tax exempt and political recommendations.
Tonight is the premiere. In 2 nights we dropped the show, and the IRS just came out and said that churches, religious organizations, can endorse political candidates. Big news, episode 7 is about the Johnson Amendment, and it is about tax exempt status and how you could lose tax exempt status if you came out and publicly endorsed candidates. So let this sink in. A church, a religious organization, can bring in money, not pay taxes, file no 990s, and endorse political candidates. This is not a right or left issue. This is an issue with history, actually, because this has happened multiple times in humans' history, where politics and religion combine. So I'll say it right now. The institutional church will become a puppet arm of the government. What does that mean? It means it will raise funds, or can potentially raise funds, for political campaigns. It means it can endorse political frontrunners. The church, which is there to help the orphan, the widowed, the marginalized, the sick, the imprisoned of these Christ churches, is now an arm of the government. This happened in Rome. It was a reverse during the Reformation, but we are seeing history repeat itself. This will not bode well for anyone.
So what do you think about churches being nonprofit? I mean, their nonprofit status. Can you even answer that briefly?
Well, I think I can. First of all, lifetime personal follower of Jesus Christ, personal experiences with him. I'm not knocking Jesus or true Christianity, but I'm sick and tired of the big dog and pony shows where you have soft men that are full-time career preachers that have never worked a hard day in their life. Now, why do I think or not think that this should be allowed? I think churches should not be tax exempt, period. I think this has been part of the demise of the church in the United States of America because there's been so many abuses by it. On the other hand, I think that a church absolutely should be able to endorse anybody that they believe aligns with their faith. The problem, as was just articulated with this Johnson Amendment and whether they codify it in Congress and make it nationwide, or Trump does a quick order, executive order saying, hey, the IRS needs to make this coast to coast, is you are going to have these abuses, especially in these mega churches. Whatever politicians can get to the mega churches fast enough, they're going to be able to outraise anybody and everybody. And that goes for Kootenai County as well. And I can't wait to watch this series because one of the things that you and I have had kind of a red pill, you more so than me, over the past 10 years, is how messed up a lot of the large churches are. And there's a comment that Lisa just made. I'm going to pull it up. During critical incidents, first responders need people they can talk to, people who are trained in how to handle this type of incident. You are absolutely correct, Lisa. My all-time favorite pastor in the entire world was my old police chaplain, who would get into my passenger side and ride with me for a shift, and he would hold me accountable. He would talk to me, and he would encourage me. At the same time, he'd kick my butt. He wasn't opposed to swearing. He was a man that worked hard his entire life, and he didn't get rich or make money off of volunteering.
Did you buy him a steak dinner?
I never bought him a steak dinner, and he never thought of himself as a very important thing in the area. Yeah.
I want to, in the video we just played, I believe that was Nathan Apfel, the director of the Religion Business docuseries. Again, Dan and I have been waiting with bated breath for this to debut, which happens tomorrow. In the Religion Business documentary, the prevalence of religion globally prompts questions on modern Christian institutions. Interviews examine Christianity's evolution and its current resemblance to Jesus, whether it resembles Jesus or not. The documentary features names like Jim Baker, remember the televangelist?
Jim and Tammy.
Jim and Tammy Faye, Mike Pence, Joel Osteen, Oral Roberts, Ravi Zacharias, American Baptist pastor Ryan Burge, and other familiar names. They have a long list there.
Well, look at Ravi Zacharias. I mean, you have literal dirtbags that were conning people for years into giving to their ministries, and they all had these radio. I mean, you're a Moody gal. Mm-hmm. You were a Moody announcer.
I worked for Moody Broadcasting Network for a lot of years. I actually got my start at KMBI Radio in Spokane on the South Hill. That building still stands today. It's no longer the studios. They've gutted the building. And then I moved to Chicago and worked on air for WMBI and a lot of the big names. And these were network programs with not only were many of these pastors who are being named now, unfortunately, this many years later, not only did they have like really cutting edge radio programs at that time, but they're, book authors and book sales. They traveled and
making
then
a killing.
They were brought in for Founders Week as special speakers. And then, I was able to tell Dan years later things that I knew behind the scenes as to certain pastors that they had like a rider, a list of things that needed to be fulfilled before they would even consider coming at things like Four Seasons Hotel. So, they needed 5-star accommodations. Yeah. And these are some of the guys we're talking about. These are not all salt of the earth, homegrown.
Look at Ravi Zacharias.
And you know more about, you'll remind
this
me
guy that
we've talked about
claimed he was so doggone humble and came from India and was converted. And he was assaulting women.
And he was a big name on Moody Radio.
I mean, assaulting and ruining women's lives. I mean, it goes on and on. And here's a question from Little Artie. Isn't it unconstitutional, whatever happened to separation of church and state? Well, okay, that is a great question. I think, first of all, it's no different than businesses. Let's quit calling churches, let's put them in a different field right now. This is the old church. This is the new model church, okay? So, old model church, the old steeple church with the old pastor, and, everybody had to work to keep the place up, and the pastor didn't make much money, but the pastor married people and he buried people. That's the model we all kind of grew up with. This new model is a business. And so when you look at the idea, well, isn't it a separation of church state? No, because you got to think of the churches as they sign and organize as corporations, as businesses. So it's no different than any other major business. They're just putting a religious, a twist on it. And I think this is the problem. We have this conversation almost every single episode. Friends, those of you that are followers of Jesus Christ, you desperately want your government to be aligned with your faith. We're post-Christian nation now. The culture has shifted. The culture reflects what is being taught in the churches or not taught. And you're trying to take this old model, this old religion, if you will, our old faith before it got corrupted, and you're trying to restore it and force it through government, when what you need to be doing is going back and holding these snake oil salesmen accountable. Those that say, if you want to run for office, you really should come to me and you should offer me a steak because I'm a pretty big thing. Pastors that will lie. You got to get rid of the corruption and not put up with it anymore. And it takes people not paying their tithes to these corrupt institutions. That's the only way you're going to get rid of them and quit going and supporting them and go back to the small basics. But yeah, I mean, this is a big mess. And I think that this guy is more right than wrong, that this is going to result in even bigger consequences when it comes to churches being used as a front to fund campaigns. And most of those guys on that list you just read, I wouldn't pay That you couldn't pay me to go see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A little bit more from Nathan Apfel, the director again of the Religion Business docuseries, and then I'm going to show you how you can go view that for yourself.
Tonight is the premiere. In 2 nights we dropped the show, and the IRS just came out and said.
Russell took issue and he showed a contract. It's a contract that I've seen and I've signed. It's where you're doing affiliate marketing with different influencers and groups that have platforms to try to market the show, to get it out. He took issue with the fact that you all are charging for the documentary. Can you help people understand, one, why are you charging from it? Why is it different than your concerns with people tithing to churches?
You learn about this in the show. You have to pick a legal sandbox to play in from a business perspective. So we did not want to be a nonprofit because nonprofits have less regulation and guideline than for-profits do. We are producing goods. We're producing a docuseries. We're producing an app. We have genius developers working on that app that are very expensive. We have genius camera operators and editors that have put together the pinnacle of my work, tens of thousands of hours worth of people's work. That all costs a lot of money. Chris and I have funded it without any outside influence, and we still have enough money to market. But guess what? If we want this message to get out to the world to really bring reform, it's going to cost a lot of money. Businesses need revenue to run. And so we are not hiding from that. The difference, though, is we're not asking you to give. We're not leveraging scriptures for you to give to us. We're saying, hey, if you like our goods or you're interested in our good, buy it. This is the cost. Because you want to know what? It costs about $1 for us to host it on the streaming platform and for you to stream it. Our web developers have to code the whole player because guess what? Most distributors don't want to distribute the show because they know it is not a show everybody's going to like, and there will literally be boycotts potentially. We had to build our own streaming platform. TikTok permanently banned us, so that means we have to think outside the box for marketing. We would have had over 1 million followers on TikTok. That is a built-in audience that we would have easily been able to have pulled 100,000 of them to be viewers. So we are a David versus a Goliath, which is expensive. We have massive legal bills because we have to protect ourselves from billion-dollar companies, and they are literally billions. They have billions in the bank to destroy people just like me that question the system. And so we will never back down on, hey, it costs money. And guess what? We are a for-profit company, which means we're accountable to the federal government and we're accountable to the state, and we pay taxes. Churches pays no tax, and he's not only a nonprofit, but he's a religious organization, which means he files no legal documents that he can be held to account for regarding finances. And then he's asking people to give money to him for his lifestyle for the church. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm saying it's apples and oranges.
Russell.
Wow. I'm really looking forward to this
I
movie.
do. I want to say we don't have any kind of affiliate partnership with the religion business. This is something that Dan and I have just been following for probably over the last year. And that docuseries debuts tomorrow. And then I'll show you guys the website if I did that. See, I still did. Oh, I just need to do this. I can I can make this happen. What? No.
Well, while
Maybe
you're
you
doing
know how
that,
to do
I'm gonna drop in. I almost am about ready to shed a tear.
Oh, are you?
I'm about ready to.
Okay.
I'm about ready to Bob Norse this whole thing.
So, okay, I think I'm on the religion business website. So what I wanted to show you here is you can watch the trailer for the docuseries. And then they had some, so not only Dan and I will be paying to stream the series ourselves. Like I said, we're not in any kind of a partnership or profiting from that. And then I love here too that they presented the problem, which I shared here just a little bit ago, but then also a solution that I'm going to let you guys read for yourself. They've developed an app that can work between churches and then those who give, the congregation who gives, for accountability. Mm-hmm. And so that's really interesting. They're not just blowing up a big problem, but then also saying we've got a way to...
This whole crap about the tithing, right? My personal belief is you give out of an abundance of your gratefulness. And it doesn't have to just be to the church coffers. It can be wherever you give generously to those that are less fortunate or in need. That's following a biblical mandate. But this leveraging to constantly have to just give to our church. And I went to a large, wasn't the largest, but a larger congregation over in Spokane Valley. I ran their security program for a couple years. So I saw a lot of things. I remember that during the 2008 financial collapse, the housing market, Bear Stearns, when everything went down really quick and the economy got really bad at the end of Bush's presidency, people were struggling. And I remember that at that time, we were always being reminded of the people in the church that were struggling, couldn't pay their mortgage, couldn't buy groceries, couldn't afford care for the children. Nobody could get medical insurance. But the church and the leaders, the pastor, who was able to change the bylaws so that he became pastor for life, by the way, coerced the congregation into voting for that. He was leading the campaign to replace the audio-visual portion of the auditorium because, according to him, on the big jumbo screens on each side, the camera was so old that his white shirts were having a pink hue. And so if they would only help him raise over $100,000, they could minister better to people online. Online, minister to people. Well, people can't pay their bills and they're suffering. We'll pray for you, brother. I think there's a scripture that talks about that where people, instead of helping meet your needs, they say, we'll pray for you. Go in peace. I know you guys, I know you know what I'm talking about. I'm not denying the faith. I'm not denying Jesus Christ. I'm not denying the power of the blood. And yes, I understand we all sin and we all have areas in our life that we have to improve on. But if you aren't listening to the Spirit, if you call yourself His, you follow Christ, you have the Spirit. And if that Spirit isn't telling you something's wrong, you might need to check your relationship. Because if you intellectually know something is wrong, but in your heart you're going, I don't know, that might be a sign. When a pastor drives a BMW while the average parishioner drives a domestic that's 15, 20 years old, that's a sign that something's out of alignment. When a pastor goes on a 7-week sabbatical, all expenses paid by the generosity of the church, that might be a sign.
Doesn't mean your pastor shouldn't be taken care of. Doesn't mean they should be slumped over, woe is me, and suffering financially. It doesn't mean that you should have a congregation of people who aren't compelled to give. But what it is, a sign of what we need to be questioning, is the same thing we do in our government: lack of transparency and accountability. Mm-hmm. And that's why I am very invested in watching the docuseries from the religion business, because that is the part, he, again, is not knocking all religious organizations. Far from it. That is not the message here. So my encouragement is we need to watch this together and have our docuseries club on the other end of it when we're all able to work our way through it and discuss what they've uncovered and other thoughts that we have on it when we finish viewing that.
We started this by saying, from skeptic to conspiracy, when distrust in government clouds the truth. And that comes as the result of elected leaders or officials amongst us, people that are supposed to be our peers, going to represent us, and they're not being truthful. They're not being steadfast. They're easily scared or deterred from doing what is right. Where does that stem from? I will be so bold to say that stems largely from people's inability to be spiritually right. If you're spiritually out of tune, and how do you get spiritually out of tune? You get spiritually out of tune when you have an entire industry playing church when it's not really the biblical model of what the gathering of believers is. All this stuff is tied together. So what do? Well, you read the word every single day, regardless of where you go to church. Don't be that person that says, you know what, I read it when I was in Awana. I read it when I was in Bible study or vacation Bible school or in college or Christian school, whatever. You still have to look at those words every single day to hold yourself accountable by reading that. The Spirit then speaks to you through that word. and reveals things to you that are true. Go to Galatians and look at what the works of the flesh are versus the works of the Spirit, the fruits of the Spirit. This book does not change. It's still as relevant today. My belief, absolutely as relevant. Jesus Christ is absolutely the same today as he was all the way in the beginning. And many of our founders, while they were adamant that we have this wrong term, but separation of church and state, not found in the Constitution, they did so because they wanted each person to be able to worship freely according to his own conviction. Some of you say, I don't have a conviction. That's awesome. When it comes to your rights as an American, don't ever let anybody snowball you, because we can go over the list of the quotes the founder said about the Bible, about God, about Jesus. It's indisputable. It does not mean that this country is a church-run government, but it should be made up of moral men and women who are followers of Jesus Christ, that use what good things that are found: noble, true, bravery, courage, sacrifice, love. Those people that espouse those things are exactly those that you want in government, not people that are selfish, people that are slanderers, people that are liars, cheats. So through these hard times, in Cooney County, we're still recovering, and it's going to be a long time. Don't forget to pray for those that are suffering right now, families that are still in sorrow over the loss of their loved ones who bravely gave their lives. Jim, I'm still praying for you, brother. Pray for Jim. Pray for Todd. Todd's back in the hospital. Pray for all of those around that are having a hard time. Be strong and of good courage. We'll see you next time.
Our program tonight, when distrust in government clouds the truth. Remember, distrust in church leaders and pastors, that clouds the truth as well. All works together. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. Remember to visit our website. There you can watch all past episodes and view exclusive reports on the Kootenai County political power players, and that is at libertywithoutcompromise.com. For our podcast, remember you can listen and subscribe wherever you get your shows. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next week. What'd you say?
If they have a favorite cigar.
Anybody.
I know Militia Shoshone Militia Man doesn't smoke or drink.
Oh, right, for the betterment of his health.
Because he looks like a champion of
the picture of health.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done his studying on the difference of cigar tobacco versus nicotine cigarettes full of chemicals.
Does that mean I'm reformed if I like
Yeah.
Baptist? I don't know.
D.L. Moody in the house.